Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of I Never Knew, But My Dog Did podcast. I am Maureen Scanlon, your host for Life Coach Maureen, as most know me. I'm so excited for my guest today. He has such a heartbreaking story, but his whole aura to me just screams positivity and light and love. And I can't wait for you guys to meet him. And, he's taking, as this podcast is all about, taking these moments and these struggles and these just really tough moments in our lives and bringing it forward to help others. And he's really, really an inspiration. I think you guys are going to love him. So today I have Clint Hatton, and he is an author, a motivational speaker, a personal development and leadership coach. And he is the founder of Big, Bold, Brave, based in Dallas, Texas, because everything is bigger in Texas. So as appropriate as Big, Bold, and Brave is, that's perfect for Dallas. So he's been coaching individuals and teams for over 20 years with a proven track record of helping people grow personally, achieve success, and build healthier marriages and relationships. We share the love of relationship coaching. Clint recently published his first book, Big, Bold, Brave: How to Live Courageously in a Risky World. And I love that title. It contains wisdom and strategies he's lived by to thrive despite his greatest personal loss. Topics include healthy mindsets, changing limiting beliefs, the power of collaboration, overcoming fear, making courageous decisions, and a commitment to health, fitness, and spiritual and emotional intelligence. Hi, Mr. Clint.
Hello, Maureen. Boy, there has been buildup for this conversation. We've been through it, so I'm excited to be here with you today.
We had a little bit of technical difficulties the other day, both of us on both ends. It was not, the technology gods were not in our favor. And so to our benefit as coaches, we can agree, what is this teaching me? And it was teaching us we needed to just better our technology. And now we have clear and beautiful technology, no freezing. And it's like I'm in the room with you. And so I took from it. So Clint, I'm so happy to have you here today. I love your guitars in the back. Can I just say you must be a guitar player? Are you in a band? Are you super cool, rock star guy?
Yeah, the way you just said that, my answer was going to be, wouldn't it be cool if I was that cool? But I don't. The quick story behind it is, years ago, I was doing a speaking engagement and a gentleman came up to me, and he was this kind of biker looking dude, and he's weeping. And the funny thing is what he came up to talk to me about wasn't about what I had just talked about. So his emotional reaction wasn't really to what I just said. Apparently he had been at one I had spoken at a couple months before. Anyway, he was really moved by a particular talk I gave. And he said, I have something that I feel like I'm supposed to give you. He said, I feel like God is telling me to give you this. And so he turns around, he grabs this, big hard case with all the roadie stickers, you can totally imagine what it looked like, plastered with roadie stickers. And he pulls out this beautiful, the one on the, well, I don't know which way it looks to you right now, but the red and black one, it's a Les Paul. It's a very, very, very nice guitar. And I was shocked. So I'm like, I can't take it. But anyway, he was very emotional about it. Felt like it was almost life or death that he gave it to me. So I now own it. It's beautiful. And my son, Gabriel, who we'll talk about a little bit here soon, he actually did pick it up and teach himself how to play guitar. So it has been played. He was much cooler than me.
I can attest to how fabulous that guitar is because my father was a musician in a band and he played bass, but then he was building custom guitars. And a fun story, he sold one of his guitars. In fact, in his music room, his whole wall is full of guitars like that. So I completely
awesome.
connect with you on that right now. And so he was real good friends with someone at Guitar City, and he brought in one of his guitars to sell. And the next time he went in there, the guy said, "Guess who bought your guitar?" And my dad's like, "Who?" And he said, "Gene Simmons bought your guitar."
No way. Oh,
why?
wow.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad that the guitar talk just happened that way. And so that's why it caught my eye, because I can appreciate that. He gave me a acoustic and an electric guitar, and I started playing the acoustic years ago. Haven't picked it up, but I still have both of them. But I should be so cool as to hang them on my wall like you. So
they do look good.
They really do. And it makes you look like super cool, even if you don't think you are. I think you are. But, you know.
That's it.
So I'm so happy you're here. And of course, we always have to start off with the, more heavier stuff, and then we go to the lighter stuff. So I call it your knee story. It's that moment in your life that brought you to your knees and you just didn't see any hope for the future. So tell me what happened for you at your most pertinent, lowest moment.
Yeah. Well, it started about 3 years ago. And I'm 57 years old. I've been through some stuff. My bride and I, her name is Amaryllis. We've been married 20 years, and we've been through some stuff, a miscarriage. She had 2 of our boys very, very early. She had a pregnancy disease and was possibly going to lose her life if they didn't take the boys early. One of them was bound 1 pound, 14 ounces. That was Liam. And so we've been through some stuff, right? And we've all been, all your listeners, man, they've been punched in the mouth by life in some form or fashion. But to get to the worst time of my life, my oldest son, his name is Gabriel. He had a passion to fly airplanes. From the time he was like 8 years old, he went up with his Uncle Danny in a little plane, and just that was it. It was in his blood. And so by the time he was in high school, he actually entered into an aviation program that we happen to have here at the school district where we are, which is very unusual. There's very few 4-year aviation programs in high schools in the United States. And so that was one part of the opportunity. And then the other part was he joined this club called Tango 31 Aero Club. And it was a club founded by a guy named Kevin Lacey. Some of your listeners may actually know who Kevin is, because in his realm, he's very famous. He was the star of the show it was on Discovery, and some others, I think, as well, called Airplane Repo, which is exactly what it sounds like. This guy had a career of going and stealing back every kind of aircraft you can think of, from small planes to Lear jets. Pretty crazy. Anyway, he started this club to give kids an opportunity to fly. So Gabriel got a chance to fly. And so at 16 years old, he actually soloed before he got his driver's license, which, let that sink in for a second. It was pretty strange. And then at 17, he earned his private pilot's license, which is the And so at 17, he's got his license. He's on his way. He was starting to take some of the advanced courses that take you to the next level to become a commercial pilot. Graduated a year early. You already know, taught himself to play guitar. He actually was an amazing photographer. The photo kind of off to my left or right, depending on how your screen shows up, is one of his photos. He just was this brilliant kid, the world in front of him. And on September 23rd of 2019, he was just getting more hours, which is what pilots do, especially at that stage. They fly every chance they get. He took a friend home to the University of Arkansas, which is north of where we are here in Dallas. And on the return trip, he dropped her off safely. Thank goodness for that. And then on the return trip, about 20 minutes out, he ran into an unexpected weather system. The NTSB would rule almost 2 years later, which is how long it takes to get that report, that he suffered from spatial disorientation. So that means you think you're flying right side up, you might be upside down. You think you're flying up and you're flying down. Kobe Bryant, the famous basketball player that died in the helicopter crash, same exact thing happened to his pilot. And he lost his life. And so I've been through some stuff, Maureen, but I did not know that kind of pain. Did not know that kind of loss personally. And so it turned our world upside down. And it's not grandiose to say our lives will never be the same. And so we were faced that morning with taking a next step into our journey as a family. He has 2 younger brothers that are now 18 and 13, and figuring out how life goes on, without a huge piece of our family and a greater size hole left in our hearts.
I can't. I won't even, entertain the thought of saying I know how you feel or I can imagine how you feel. I can't even imagine. I think the loss of a child is something that it's not even a matter of time goes by and it gets better. I just think you live with that void for the rest of your life the best that you can. And I've interviewed other guests who've lost their children. One guest, she lost her daughter at 17 as well, and to cancer that was undiscovered, and it was sudden and it was shocking. And
Gosh.
how do you even deal with that? It's so sudden and tragic. This was not a long-term illness. That had to be just 1 minute they're there and then 1 minute they're not. What were the first steps that you took to start I'm not even going to say healing, but just even wanting to stay in this world? Because I know losing one of my kids, it would be just, how would I even imagine wanting to stay here without them?
Right. Yeah, no. I think one thing I'll say just before I launch into that is if I had any advantage at all, because no one can even begin to fathom what it feels like until you've had to go through it yourself, But if I had an advantage at all, I've been helping, coaching people, and I was in the church world for many, many years and helped a lot of people in similar circumstances where they've lost a loved one, in some cases, a child. And even though, again, helping someone go through that, or at least doing a small part of trying to help them go through that, doesn't fully prepare you for when it hits you, right? But I did observe over the years some common ground with the way certain people tried walking out their tragedy. And unfortunately, as I've seen so many times, especially over the last 20 years, and I'm sure, Maureen, you've probably interviewed people where this is the case, and certainly know people where it's the case. A lot of marriages don't make it, and even full families often implode just under the crushing blow of the pain, So I want to start with that just because of, where I'm going to go and just acknowledge for all your listeners out there, especially the ones who have suffered something very similar, that whatever your base point was, that, you don't need to be a revisionist about it. You don't need to, think you should have done something any differently. You start where you start, right?
That's good.
You start where you start. And so there's no shame in any of it, no matter how you process this thing. But what happened was it was a very long night, and I'll leave out some details to just, so we can keep going and have some fun during this conversation as well. But long night, my 2 younger sons, we did not even wake up. We didn't let them know that we were waiting on word to find out what had happened to Gabriel. And there was a lot of ebbs and flows, ups and downs. The news was reporting he had passed away. The sheriff's department that did search and rescue were saying we can't confirm that. It was just a crazy night. And then about 3:30 in the morning is when we got the call that the coroner had visited on site, which was, as it turned out, really all they were waiting for, and gave us the official word. So the boys got up about 7:30 in the morning, and after delivering the news to them, and I've been asked, what did you say? And honestly, Maureen, that part's a blur. I don't remember exactly how I told them that their brother was gone. It was pretty short and to the point, and it was awful. Just the emotional response to that. I mean, it gets me even now, just seeing their delicate hearts just completely shattered with the reality of death and the reality of just us, living on this planet temporarily and not knowing when or how long we're going to be here. All that stuff is kind of in your face when this happens. So I just allowed them to process the initial, I call the entire first year the shock and awe phase of a tragedy, because you've got the birthdays coming up, the other types of milestones, holidays, all those things. And until you've gone through at least one full calendar year, it's not even real yet, honestly, in many ways. So, but I sat them down and I looked at them, and I really sensed that even though it was an impossible conversation, I knew what I needed to say. And if I could say it this way, to set a compass, not to take away the pain, I'm not talking about that, but just to set the tone for what this is going to look like for us as a family. And I told the boys and my bride, I said, listen, I know this. We have two choices. One choice is we can spend the rest of our lives identifying with his death and focused on the way he died, the fact that it was a tragedy, the fact that he was only 3 months shy of his 18th birthday, and then of course all the future dreams that we had of things that we would experience with him, and not that you don't still process those things and think about them. We do every day. A day doesn't go by where I don't think about him. But I said, if we allow that to be our focal point, then we are going to be shadows of who we were created to be. We are not going to live life in our fullness, because there's going to be this piece of us that keeps us trapped in that tragedy. I said, but there's a second choice. And the second choice is we're going to choose life. And what that meant to us that morning was, I said, listen, I gave you guys a quick snapshot of just kind of who he was. I always joke now that everybody loves t-shirts with sayings on them, right? And so if I were to buy him a t-shirt, it would just simply say, what's next? Because that was him. We could go on the best vacation. We went down to Florida, rented this beautiful house. It was amazing. And we're barely an hour back on a 13-hour drive, and he's already, what's next? I'm like, be grateful, I just paid for this thing, But that was just him. So the compass that was set is listen, we're going to choose life, which means the only way we can honor him is to attack life the way he attacked life. If we now become lesser than who we're supposed to be, then there's no honor in that. So that's what we're going to do. And that would mean something different, right? Because we're all different people. I'm different than my bride. I'm, different than my two boys are different skills and talents and desires. But we were going to choose life and do everything we knew how to do to keep that as a focal point. And then the second piece, which I think was really critical. And again, Maureen, I want to be super sensitive to all of your listeners out there, because there are some that maybe it's been many, many years and you're still really struggling to get to a point where you feel like it's not about pain. It really isn't. I expect to be in pain the rest of my life. I really do. But it can't be a crippling pain. I can't allow that pain to dictate how I live the rest of my life. What kind of an example I set for my two other boys? Because that's part of the answer to your question too. How do you go on? Well, I had a bride of almost 20 years, 17 years at that point. And I had two other sons, so that was a factor too. But I told them, listen, we don't know what grieving is going to be like for us as a family, individually. We don't know, what day we're going to feel angry and hurt or crying or even joy, because we're telling a funny story and remembering something that he did that was so great, and maybe even hourly for a while. We don't know what we're going to feel like. So I just gave them permission. I said, listen, you can feel whatever you want to feel, and I'm going to do the same. And we're going to do it openly in front of each other. It wasn't a rule for mom and dad, because the boys were 9, 13. Yeah. It wasn't a rule where you need to be open to us, but we're going to be phony to you, and then we're going to go behind closed doors, and then we'll process there. And so you don't have to see it or know about it. That's not what we did. We chose to do it open face, as a family. So there's been times, even it's been a little over 3 years, Maureen, and it still happens where, there's a certain trigger. And, just a couple of weeks ago, I had one where I just started to cry, and I'll do it in front of my boys, and I'll tell them exactly what I'm feeling. And that was kind of the tone we set that morning, is this is how we're going to do it. And we're all going to be okay to do whatever we need to do to work through any emotion. We're not going to try and stop each other. If you're angry, I'm not going to try and talk you out of it. If you're crying, I'm not going to hug you and say, stop crying. Because some people do that,
Yes.
We're not going to do that. And so, and then one last thing, and we'll move on, or whatever you want to get to next, but we didn't do this perfectly. Your listeners need to know that too. It's been a work in progress. It's a journey. It wasn't some, 3-step program that I initiated into our, family that now we're going to be able to do this pain-free and we're going to be, victorious and, all that stuff. Yeah. But it did set a compass that when the hard moments would hit, instead of allowing that pain to dictate our life, we were able to feel through whatever we needed to feel through and then recalibrate, refocus, and do what we need to do to live the life we were created to live.
I'm like awestruck by you. And I've talked to so many guests about grief and losing their loved ones, and it's amazing how differently we all handle it. And when you say we didn't do it perfectly, I'm going to correct you, and I'm going to say you did it perfectly for you and for your family. And that is all that matters. And I think when it comes to grief, we need to stop thinking there's a textbook for how we do it. I had a young widow, excuse me, a young widow who had to tell her 2 young boys their dad passed away of a brain aneurysm on a work trip in a shower. And she immediately went and told her boys, just from the getting the phone call to telling her boys. And I know a lot of people will be like, I have to protect him. And I love that you were open and transparent. She was open and transparent, because I have another guest whose parent died. His mother died when he was 7, and no one ever talked to him about it. And here he is, 40 years later, trying to process what the heck is going on with my life. Well, I never got to process the grief. So I know that listeners are going to really admire that you did it perfectly, because you did it for you. And one thing the widow said that I'm going to bring forward, and I love what she said, this is, there's going to be a lot of days that you're not okay. And she goes, I get tired of hearing it's okay not to be okay. She goes, I say it's okay to be okay. Because there's that guilt, that survivor's guilt, that people are like, you shouldn't be okay. You should be mourning your child. You should be mourning your husband. You don't look like you're sad. And so I think what you did was incredible. And when you feel it, express it, and you give your boys that freedom to say, hey, it's going to come in waves. It's going to come and go for the rest of your life. But you know what? To do that in front of each other is the healthiest thing I have ever heard in my life. Is we're going to feel our way through it, and then we're going to restart, or we're just going to, whatever that day brings, we're going to deal with it. And I'm just so, I'm so impressed by how you handled it. And when we're in that state of mind, when something tragic happens, we're not clear. And you were able to say, okay, here's our compass. Here's the way that we're going to go, and we're going to live the way that he did. And our motto for life now is, what's next? Let's keep doing this for him. Do you find that when you speak about him, when you're doing stuff, does that bring you joy and make you feel that as if, you know what, he's always with us and we can talk about him? Because a lot of people say, I don't want to, I'm going to call up Clint and say, hey, how are you? But I don't want to mention Gabriel because I don't want to upset him. So how have you learned not to be when, now that you experienced it for yourself? And I love that you predecessed this with, I've helped a lot of people and I've been there for people in that moment. And then you got that experience, and you probably have this whole new, oh my gosh, it's a totally different ball game. Now I know what not to say or what to say or what to do. What do you think?
Yeah, boy, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I would say, to the last thing you just said there, I was compassionate and had empathy for people before, or I wouldn't have been in the business I've been in for as long as I have. But there was something about this ongoing journey that I'm on now after losing Gabriel and my compassion and my empathy are on steroids now. I think I have a much higher tolerance for, where people are at and what they may have suffered through, especially when you're not even sure, you don't even know, you're just judging someone based on how they act or certain ways they respond. And until you know their story, you probably need to step down a little bit, to your point, you said something so critical, I think, when you were talking about what the widow told you about being okay, because the opposite is true too. There are people who will tell you, well, you're not showing enough emotion. But there's also people that after whatever they consider to be the prescribed amount of time of quote unquote grieving, that you're still crying. You shouldn't be crying. You should be past it. You should be over it, right? And there's no getting over it. There's no over. And I'm not even looking, nor is my family looking to eliminate the pain of his loss, because that pain represents the love we shared because of who he is. Yeah. End of story. So that's not even a goal, right? But we said something very similar to what she said. We said, it's going to be okay to not be okay, but it's not going to be okay to not be okay alone. And I think that's a really critical thing. For us, it was our family unit and some extended family as well, grandparents and such. But that's something I think is really critical for your listeners that, maybe they're needing to kind of restart because they've been kind of stuck with that pain of the past, and they recognize maybe they're not fully who they could be today. And again, not to get over it, but to process their way through it to where they can live a healthier life and bring that joy back. So having people around you that you can talk to, and this is why it's so important what you do, podcasts and all those kinds of things. I find them incredibly helpful, just hearing other people's stories and knowing that you're not alone, that you're not the only one, that's ever gone through something like this. And you hear tips from other people, and those are all good. But as far as, just the process that we went through and the joy, again, it's, not every day was the same, especially that first year. Some days were good days, meaning that we were pretty upbeat. And there were other days, frankly, when neither one of us wanted to get out of bed. We did because we had to live life, and again, I think for us, if I could say it this way, it was an advantage to have two younger children, in that was something constantly in front of us, that we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for them too,
Yeah.
But I think I'll share a quick story with you, because my two sons, that are my middle son and my youngest son, Joel and Liam, they're a great example of the differences in the grieving process. And they had to learn through this compass that we set how to be okay with each other, because, Joel was only 3 years apart from Gabriel. And the year prior to, which was really just a matter of months, but the year prior to him passing, they had went on this vacation with some grandparents together, just the two of them. And it was out in the woods in North Carolina, beautiful mountains. They drove Jeeps, and they actually bonded as best friends for the first time. Prior to that, they were the typical, grinding, punching, are they ever going to get along? Are they going to be 40 years old coming over for Christmas and they're still fighting, that whole deal. But they had turned the corner. And so for Joel, it was, just a different type of devastating blow. And so he wasn't as willing to just talk about Gabriel in just normal conversation. Whereas Liam, who was younger, and they were almost 8 years apart, he had a different relationship. And so what Liam would do, and this is just human nature, we're all different, right? He would literally, we'd go out to our favorite pizza joint, and we'd order pizza and we'd start eating, and everybody's, oh, this is so good. And he'd go, yeah, Gabriel would have really loved this pizza. Or we'd be at a movie and he'd go, Gabriel would have really loved this movie. And so he processed by bringing him into the now of a given moment. And at first, a few months, Joel had a hard time with that. And at times he would get a little bit angry because he wasn't triggered the same way. He didn't process the same way. And so sometimes when Liam would bring it up, he would feel like, now you've triggered me and now I don't know what to do with it, And so it was messy, it was messy. It wasn't this clean cut, again, step by step, just do this. But it was healthy. Like you said, it was healthy because it allowed us to have conversations with the two of them as we went through it. And just explain to Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, you were so in tune to your children. And when I hear you tell that story, I think Liam processed it easier Wait, Liam's the little one.
He's 13 now, but he was only 9 at the time.
He's your youngest one. Wait.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, I'm mixing. I was mixing them up. I'm like the Liam. I'm like, okay, I want to keep your memory alive, and I'm going to involve you in everything. And being that I'm a psychic medium, I know that you're still here and you're still with us. Which, as children, I never knew that. But I love that Liam is just like, he would have loved this, and he's keeping it alive. Whereas Joel saw it as the thing I'm missing, the thing I'm not going to get ever again. And he would take a little longer to process until he got to that point where he was like, okay, now I have gratitude for that bonding that I did have with my brother, and now I'm able to speak of him and honor him. But that would take a little bit longer. And the older they are, taking their ages into effect. So kudos to you for being so in tuned to your other ones, because a lot of people, and this is no judgment whatsoever, but you sort of are in this world of losing that child, that the other two, you're like, I just don't have time right now. I'm sad. I'm busy. We're trying to get things done. And then they're not going to process it as long as they're worrying about you.
Right.
So I just love that you said that. The other thing that she said in her episode, will be a few before yours, but what she said was, in fact, the title of her episode is Grief is Not a Competition. Did you find that people would go, oh, I feel so bad for you. I know I have a neighbor, cousin, sister who lost their teenager, and she said blah, blah, blah. Did you find that people were competing, or they're like, I know, but it's not like losing a spouse that you've been married to for 50 years. Did you find that happening?
Oh, absolutely. I think here's how I see that, Maureen. I think most people, and I mean the vast majority of people, really do mean well. I don't think people in general are looking to say something really dumb that hurts you. But the truth is, what happens is here's the thing. Even if you have gone through something similar, like right now, and I've unfortunately, in different relationships that I have over the last few years, I have several families that have had a loss of a teenager or a young child. And so I have had plenty of circumstances where they are now going through the same thing. I just know better. I would never say to them, Eve, I wouldn't even say this. Oh, I know exactly what you're going through. Because I don't. They're different. The relationships can be different. The way, your emotional, spiritual state, your maturity level. I mean, there's so many factors that go into your ability to process at any given time, right? And so you can't compare. So I've actually posted something, because I didn't post a whole lot on social media that first year, but fairly early on, I did post one thing because I saw it happening a lot, to your point. And I saw all these people wanting to say things without really fully understanding. Honestly, I used the word dumb a minute ago, how dumb what they're saying was. And so I teach people now, if you could say it that way, you have someone, and I'm not even just losing a child, if they lose any loved one early on, which means probably months, this is all they need to hear from you. I love you, and I'm here for you if you need me. It's about it.
Do you hear that, listeners? Do you hear that? Because every single day we see on Facebook, on social media, someone has lost someone. And this is all we have to say from Clint. I love you, and I am here for you. I know that my young widow had said, I had a friend that just said, I don't have to talk. We don't have to say a word. Can I just come over and sit with you? And she was so grateful that she didn't have to talk. She just had a presence there. She didn't want to be alone, but she also didn't want to talk it to death. And I think, we talk about grief recovery, but we don't talk about, when you're not going through grief, what to say to people who are in grief, or how to console one another. And I used to say, oh, my heart breaks for you. And I've learned now not to say that, but that my heart, what do I say now? My heart goes out to you. because what my heart is full of love. And so my love goes out to you. And if there's anything I can do for you, you can have that. But I can't say anymore. My heart breaks for you. And it was just an innocent, unintentional way of saying, I hurt so bad for you. And you're right. We just need to say, I love you and I'm here for you. So I love that story, and I love Gabriel, and I want to do a reading and see if we can connect with Gabriel. But tell us, how does his legacy live on? What are you doing? What have you done? I know you're a amazing mentor and coach and all that encompasses. And I think taking our pain is sort of a fuel that really helps us to be better coaches. I agree, or light workers or helpers. So what have you done to have him leave that legacy, or to honor him, or to do better for your life?
Yeah. Well, the answer is going to sound similar in that, of course, it's been a journey. It wasn't like this one moment or anything like that. But what happened early on, because I need to, in order to answer that, I really need to explain why this phrase "big, bold, brave" is on my book and why it's the name of my company. So the morning after the accident, because of his age, it was going to be news. And so I was contacted by a couple of local newscasters. One was NBC here in Dallas, and they wanted to do an interview. And of course, this is the morning up, literally. So I was like, no, not going to happen. Can't do it. And we were a wreck, But what ended up happening is she, I was a pastor for many years. So my belief system is I do have faith. Faith has been a big part of my life. And so what happened for me was she said, I share your faith. And I just wanted you to know that if you don't do this interview with me, I have to do a story. I still have to do the story because he was a young pilot. It was going to be all over the place. Okay. She said, but if I do the story without you, then it's going to be a report on his death. Oh. If you'll do it with me, then it can be a report on his life.
Oh my gosh, I love that reporter so much.
She's amazing. Her name is Katie Blakey, and she was really sweet. And so, with that, I told her, on the phone, I sorry, I can't, I still can't do it. There's no way. And she said, well, just think about it. So we hung up, and I ended up having a conversation. My wife was in the room, and her dad, who had already gotten here very quickly from Florida, was here too. And he said, well, and this was strange too, Maureen, because he was the one that was, for a lot of reasons, to save time I won't get into, would have been the one who had said, heck no, don't do a TV interview, right? But he said, I think you guys should do it. And I think you should, because you've already said how you want to honor his life. So what better way than to start out with being able to tell the story about how he lived and who he was versus just his death.
Yeah.
And that was really all it took. And I'm like, okay. So she came into our house that day. We did the interview. And somewhere in there, Maureen, I still to this day don't remember consciously saying it, but I said something about him living big, bold, and brave. Didn't even think about it. But then later that night, when the segment aired, and it was about a 3-minute segment, she did a beautiful job with it. And it really did do a great job of telling the story of his life and, who kind of we were and all that stuff. And at the end of it, instead of where I said it somewhere, because, they tape it, just like a lot of things, they tape it and then they only use some of it, right? And so at the end of the broadcast, she said, Gabriel's parents encourage you to live like Gabriel, big, bold, and brave. And it just registered, that became, now here's the thing that, this is the day of, so that's the name of my personal development company, because I'm going to launch out, and that's the name of my book. It wasn't all that. It was just it was just a personal family mantra that was like, okay, that gives us a language for it. So when we need to kind of recalibrate and get back on track, we're living like Gabriel, big, bold, and brave, right? So that's all it was for a while. But then over the course of months, I began to, get a vision for launching out. As I said just a few minutes ago, I spent almost 17 years as a pastor. And I really wanted to step outside of that. I wanted to just really expand who I could help. And that's anybody that's in whatever your religion is, whatever role you play with, however that religion is expressed, those are all very worthy things. There's nothing lesser than it was a worthy thing to be doing. But I just knew I wanted to be able to reach a broader group of people. I wanted to be able to help anybody, not just people who necessarily shared my exact flavor of faith, even, right? And so I began to launch out with Big Bold Brave Coaching, and then it eventually led to me writing the book, which took about 2 years before I was ready for that, Maureen.
Okay.
And honestly, the reason why I wrote it when I did, because even we've been a little over 3 years since Gabriel passed. That's not very long either. It's not. I mean, I know people who write a book their first year, and that's fine too. But I knew I needed some time. And really what was the not greater factor, but a contributing factor was he passed away September 23rd, 2019. So I'm sure some of your listeners have already done the math. 3 months later, COVID hit the planet. So for the next, 2+ years or however long not that it's completely gone away, but where we really endured all the crazy changes and some people dying and all those things, the world had suffered tremendous loss these last couple of years. And so for me, it wasn't about, you said the word comparison earlier, which I just love that, because there is no comparison. I don't want anybody out there feeling like, well, now I don't know if I can, is it worthy of me to feel the pain of my divorce, been being married 20 years because he lost a child? No, pain is pain. Loss is loss, And so I really felt like I need to write this book, because it's not just a book on grieving. It's really a life manual to help people that when you get punched in the mouth, because it's going to happen, there is still hope. There is still a future ahead of you. And if you can learn a few little things along the way, if you can live by certain values, then you can get through it and you can still live a whole life. And so that's largely why I wrote the book when I did, was just all the people that have suffered on this planet this last couple of years.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this a million times over. I mean, I've written 2 and I'm now writing my 3rd. And I will say this 100 times over to every single person who has a book inside of them, has published a book or going to publish a book. The perfect time for writing your book is when you write it. I'm just gonna
yes, come on.
Because I've had the same thing. I've had people that took 10 years of writing their book, and I wrote mine in 8 weeks. My first one. I just feel like when you're moved to do it is going to be the right time. Like anything in life, it happens when it's supposed to happen, and we got to stop overthinking everything so much and just feel your way through it. And so it came out when it needed to come out, and your next one will too, and your coaching. And I love, because you and I share the same philosophy in my coaching. I accept everyone and everything, because if you're human, I can coach you. I do, if whatever your faith is, your non-faith is, your whatever it is, all I need is the person in front of me to say, Maureen, I need a path. I don't even need a path, Maureen. I just need a step. Can you help me with a step?
Yeah.
And right. I see, if you do not push your stuff on other people, and you have whatever, I always joke around. I always say, this pen could be my God, if it makes me feel better, and it's, and I say, this pen is going to give me a really good attitude today. Whatever you believe, whatever
right.
It's a silly analogy, but whatever you believe,
I don't know. There probably is someone out there that worships a blue pen. Who knows?
My thing is if it makes you feel good, do it. If it doesn't make you feel good, stop doing it. And so I love the Big Bold Brave, the BBB, and I love that Gabriel lives on in that. And you're right. It wasn't like you were like, okay, now we're done grieving. Now we're going to start business. And now there's no, it's all fluid, right? There's no endings and beginnings. It's like this happened, and then I kind of fell into this thing, and we were still this. And so I love that you show your humanness, and you tell our listeners that there's no right or wrong way to do this. And whether it's a grandparent, a parent, in my case, I just lost my puppy less than a month ago, a pet.
Sorry.
Thank you. Or child. I think there's no comparison to pain. And I think that's why I love this podcast, is every single thing that you talk about and that every guest talks about, someone out there can relate to that. We're not in competition with each other.
Right.
We are learning and helping each other from this. So I'm excited, guys. Remember that the book. Okay. I got to get this book too. Oh my gosh. I have to stop interviewing authors, because like my book, my book list is, I'm going to until I finish all of these. So big, bold, brave, how to live courageously in a risky world. And what I love about that Gabriel sends to me, that message sends to me, is live life like it's your last. Live like it's your last moments in your last days, and you're never going to regret trying something. Is that what you feel like the legacy Gabriel left for you, and that you share with your sons and with the world now, is don't wait.
Yeah. There's a couple of things to that. I'm so glad you said that, because, one, I think part of why this brings such energy to me, and this is something that I do, it's a chapter in the book, I think giving our pain a purpose is really critical. And I'm going to start by saying, here's what I mean by that. We tell ourselves a story, whether we consciously recognize it or not, about trauma and the bumps and bruises of life. We tell ourselves a story. Yeah. And part of when I was saying, we were not going to choose death, that means we were not going to keep telling the death story, right? And so giving your pain a purpose, I think, is one way that people can really move through it. Again, not to get over something, but to move through that pain and do something productive with it. So you start telling yourself a different story as to the impact that pain is going to have on the rest of your life. Because again, the pain's still there, but I can tell it where to go. And so for me, it was twofold with the book. One is, obviously I wanted to help a lot of people, but I found myself in this very unwanted club that I now belong to, right? Where I expected our life to be very normal. I expected me to grow much older. And then at some point, my legacy hopefully has been left for them, and they can stand on my shoulders, and, all the cliches that we use. But the truth is, that's what you want. You want your life with your children to be among a certain order of things, right? And it's not our story. So I've told myself a different story. And that story now is that through Big Bold Brave, through the book, and some other things that we're doing too, we actually gave away a scholarship last year to an aviation student in his name, for example. But what I've done is now I feel like I've been given the, you can say calling, you can say mandate, whatever word you want to use, of not only trying to leave a footprint on this planet of my own legacy, hopefully something that when people think of me when I'm gone, they think of not what I did necessarily, but who I was, what kind of a person I was, how I made people feel, that I'm carrying his with me as well. And so that's what, Big Bold Brave, the name of the company, and what the book, and every time I share his story, is allowing me to do, so I just want to encourage, some of your listeners out there right now, maybe you haven't processed some of these things yet, and you felt kind of stuck. Giving your pain a purpose and telling a different story is really powerful. And there's so many ways you can do it. And we're aware of it too around us. We know of someone who loses someone to cancer. And the next thing you know, they've started some sort of a charter organization or a support group or something, or they donate towards the research of that particular cancer. That's one form. There's so many forms of doing something positive for other humans that is related to our pain.
Yes. What came to my mind when you were speaking was when you said, we're going to tell a different story. We can talk about his death, or we can talk about his life. The thing that stuck in my head was, we can keep reliving the trauma, or we can give away some of the pain little by little by sharing the healing. And then when you go further and you honor them with these legacies of giving and paying this thing forward, I think when it comes to grief, we always worry, and even with our own deaths, I think is like, I don't want to be forgotten. And then when you lose someone, you're like, I don't want them to be forgotten as the years go by, and it's been 20 years. This is a way of keeping them living. And I think that is so healthy and healing, healing in the sense that, not that it's ever, we're going to get over the loss of them, we're going to forget about, it's not going to be painful. When I say the moving forward is, it's not going to be, the void is not going to be, I think, as big, because he has a presence with us in what we're doing every day, in the books that we're writing, and in the podcasts that we're sharing, and all those ripples through life. They're essentially, we're keeping them alive with us. If it's not in physical, but it definitely is in spiritual, that they live on. And isn't that the biggest, I think that's the biggest thing, is that void of finality. They're not here with us anymore. And I think maybe I just unlocked the key of, my own understanding, is filling that void is by keeping that alive and sharing it with others, and getting to talk about it, or going and talking to students about mindfulness or positive stuff. And I love that you carry that forward. So what's your next move? What's your next thing what's next, Gabriel? What's Gabriel telling us to do next?
Yeah. Well, right now, of course, the official book, the book is currently available everywhere books are sold, and it has been for a little bit, but I'm doing the official book launch on February 1st. So a lot of my energies are focused on that right now. But what's in the works is I'm continuing to develop what's going to be a digital coaching program. I'm going to launch my own podcast as well this year, called Stories of Big, Bold, Brave Humans. Because I really believe another thing, like what we're doing here today, that is energizing, is when you collaborate with other people and you hear, I really am grateful, and it means a lot to me that you tell me that I'm inspiring people by, going about things the way I am. But I think your listeners need to know, as wonderful as that feels, I know I'm nothing extraordinary. I'm just like anyone else. And so part of my vision with bringing people onto the podcast and some of the things I'm going to do even later on has to do with, my tagline is courageous humans, inspiring lives. I just want to do my part in jump-starting people to recognize that their story matters as much as anybody else's. We all have something that we uniquely bring to this planet that no one else has, and the world needs you. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be super famous and that 7 billion people know who you are, right? When I wrote the book, the best advice I got, Maureen, was the gentleman who wrote my foreword. His name is Howard Behar. He's the former president of Starbucks International. I met him through a podcast, believe it or not, Strange Circumstances. But before I started writing the book, he said, don't write a bestseller. Write it as if you're trying to help one person. And that was so huge for me. But I would say, way beyond writing a book, that's how we should treat life.
Yes, sir.
In the next moment, what can I do to help someone right now?
Yeah. Yeah. One person needs what you have to say.
That's right.
I love it. I love it. I'm already booking my spot on your podcast because, I know my own story, my own history story of domestic violence and low self-worth and self-esteem kept me, from living my best life. And that you are preaching to the choir. I love it. And my listeners are part of my choir because they're here wanting the same thing. And that's what we want. You and I believe in the same thing, which is, all of us have a story. Let's share it with each other to help each other. And on those lines, the starfish story, the starfish story.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
it. That's what I live by. I'm getting a starfish tattoo, and it mattered to that one. That is it. Don't aim to be a millionaire and get millions of dollars. Don't aim to be famous and be an influencer. Don't aim to be, oh, I'm going to be a household name. It's great to have goals and wishes and intentions. That's great. Right. If I change one life every single day, if having a podcast and having my buddy Clint on here reaches one listener today, that helps another person who's been through it, that helps another person. Can you imagine? We don't even know the impact we have every single day of the amount of people. You helped one person who helped 10, who helped 10,000, 20,000. And that's this evolution, I think, that we need to be making as humans and getting better, is just touching each other and talking about it. I know you and I are of the same age range. We are Gen Xers, and our generation was not a generation of talkers about feelings. We just we didn't do it. We did. Sorry, my motto was "Suck it up, Buttercup," or my mom's motto was "Suck it up, Buttercup," or her favorite line was, "You made your bed, now lie in it." That's
that heard that one many times.
That one's ringing in my ears for 52 years. So I'm so glad that we are not there anymore. Is there a website that they can reach out to you for coaching and for speaking, motivational speaking? And then also, is your book available on that website too?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what I would love for your listeners to do. Go to the website, bigboldbrave.us. And I know the sticklers out there are going to say it's .us. I know that, but I believe in the power of collaboration, and it's about us, not me. So that's why I say bigboldbrave.us. And what can happen there, Maureen, is they'll kind of one-stop shopping. They can find it all. They can subscribe to, I'm going to start a newsletter once a week that's going to include just some inspiring stories and different things as we go along. They can purchase the book there, of course. And then they can see different talks that I have for corporate speaking engagements, keynotes, that kind of stuff as well, and the coaching module. So that's probably the best place to start. I'd love if you've subscribed, but I do want to point out, because I know there's probably some international listeners as well. And with the day and age of shipping that we live in right now, you're better off if you live in Canada, or I actually found this out the other day. I got my first quote to send one book to Canada. The first quote was $68. Let that sink in for a second. So if you're international and you want the book, you can get it anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, you name it. But please go to the website and subscribe there, and be prepared to get some updates and some of the cool things coming with Big Bold Brave, and may even feature your story someday.
Nice. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. BigBoldBrave.us, and get that book, guys. Big Bold Brave. So what I end my podcast with, Mr. Clint, is something fun. And so I have a little segment, and it's called Take My Money. So,
I like that so far.
So what I like to do is, because I'm weird like this, I like to be nosy and see what you've bought that's been like really weird and wacky, or something that you can't live without that's weird and wacky, or something you've seen for sale that's weird or wacky. See, I'm expanding it because a lot of people look at me and go, Maureen, I can't think of anything. I'm like, okay, how about this? How about this? So what's your weird and wacky thing? And I'll give you an example to help you along. What I found on Amazon today that I am all about, because I am a chapstick junkie. I have cotton candy. I have, guess what? I found a set of 3 chapsticks, and it's the s'mores collection. There is a chocolate, a marshmallow, and a graham cracker chapstick. Okay. I am all about it. It was like $4 or something. So yum. The other thing I thought was super cute that I want is, it's a little crab, and it sits on the side of your pot when you're cooking, and then you can put your spoon on it. It's like a spoon rest, but it's like this little crab is like sitting on the edge of your pot. It's pretty dang cute. So those are my take my monies today. How about you? What you got for me?
Gosh, you're killing me. You know, I'm having a senior moment right now, because I did buy something recently that somebody was totally making fun of me about, and now I'm trying to remember what the heck it is. Oh my gosh.
Oh, come on.
I'm trying.
I'm dying here. That's okay.
This
You
is
got
so
this.
bad. Wow. You're the first one to ever stump. I've been on 15 of these things in the last 3 weeks. I have not been stumped. You are totally stumping me.
I love it. That's my
Weird
goal.
and wacky. Weird and wacky. Can it be something that someone else bought in my household?
100%.
Good. Then now I've got all kinds of examples. My oldest son, who's now 18, has recently in this last year bought at least 2 different pairs of what I would call full-blown grandma slippers that he has worn to school with his pajamas.
Oh my gosh, I'm dead right now.
He thinks it's the coolest thing. Though actually, there's a whole culture of that here where we are. All these students that I keep telling my mom passed away about 8 years ago now, but she used to make her own. So she had all these wacky sandals and shoes. I'm like, those are exactly what Mama Dolly would have put on. So, there's your answer.
See, grandma's inspiring teenagers everywhere. I now I have my grandson living with me who's 15. Well, here's what he does. He goes to we have this really cool thrift store across the street from us, and he loves the thrift stores, and I do too, because I like to be repurposing stuff and not wasteful for the earth. But he goes and he buys these pants. Now, mind you, he's like 5'9", and he's a very thin, he just grew more up than he did out because that's that age. And he came home the other day with pants on and a belt around it. And I said, I don't mind you buying a little bit baggy. They were a size like 42 or 44. And he would normally wear like a 30.
Oh, right.
So that's kind of our style of our teenagers here. And he's a skater, he skateboards, but the grandma slippers, now that is muy
I'm
perfecto.
Talking fuzzy, jeweled, just whatever wacky you can think of. Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, you're gonna laugh. Are they anything like these that I have on right now? Okay.
Oh no, those are subdued.
Normal.
Those are those are very conservative. Yeah, no,
I thought that
I'm
would
talking
be creepy.
Pinks and reds and oranges and fuzzy and I think one had whatever
pom-poms and
right. Yeah. Oh, and he had these weren't like grandma's, but he also bought a pair of sliders, right? Not flip-flops, but sliders.
Yep.
That were about that thick of a sole, and it was basically a gigantic shark. These things were like oversized, and they had a big shark fin on the top, and he would clomp, 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 clomp.
I have seen those, and I'm in love. Where it looks like it's eating your foot, right?
Oh, totally. So we bought him some Crocs because Crocs are like back in again. And so now I actually think, okay, well, Crocs are cool compared to what you used to wear, so let's just go with that.
I love it. I would love to see his shoe collection. That's just winner for me. Well, Clint, I cannot tell you how honored I am to have had you here today to share your story. And I view it always as a privilege to get to have you tell me your story. I never take that lightly. And that's, for you to give an hour of your life, open up, be vulnerable, and share your story. It means the world to me, and I'll never, ever take that for granted or feel no gratitude for that. That was a terrible double negative. But what I'm trying to say very clumsily is I just appreciate you so much, and I can't tell you how much our listeners are going to get from this. And you're an inspiration. You're aspiring and inspiring, and I just thank you for our new friendship and for getting to meet you and have some fun here for the last hour. And I hope you had fun, because we really enjoyed you.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Maureen. It was a pleasure being on. And when we had our little technical mishap, we did get a chance to chit chat a little bit, and so I knew this was going to be a good one, and it was fun.
Yay.
And thank you for letting me share the story. As much as that's your heart to honor other people's stories, I appreciate the platform to be able to share my story. So thank you so much.
You better believe it. Gabriel, we love you, and we're honoring you, Gabriel, big, bold, and brave, and everyone's going to live their lives in your legacy. And don't forget, guys, bigbboldbrave.us. If you're looking for any relationship coaching, gosh, I'm getting tongue-tied right now. Relationship coaching or life coaching or self-esteem, confidence, self-image coaching. And I'm also expanding into helping neurodivergent and spectrum, people on the spectrum. I'm expanding to start coaching in that area, even the dating, especially the dating for my neurodivergent and spectrum, because everyone deserves love and we can find you love. I think you we'll find special ways to do that. So lifecoachmaureen.com is where you can find me. My books, My Dog is My Relationship Coach, and My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am are also on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Outskirts Press, and all those fun places. And last but not least, mydogiseverything.net. We have our little boutique. So for your furry babies, don't forget to get them some healthy, holistic treats. So we're going to wrap it up today, guys. And I look forward to seeing everyone. Don't forget to leave your comments if you want to get a hold of Clint. I will happily hook you up on email. We'll connect you and I'll forward anything you want to say to Clint as well to him. So leave those 5-star reviews, share, subscribe, share this with, did I say share? Share with your audience, with your friends. And let's make this community a huge community. And when Clint starts his podcast, we're going to do a huge collaboration and we're just going to be a big community of story sharing, helping people. So that's what we're here for. Thank you all. And we will see you on next episode. Be well, be happy, and most of all, be big, bold, and brave. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.